Hi, my name is Becky Baker and I am a teaching artist with Artists Creating Together, and I'm joining you for another Stay Home, Stay Creative lesson today. And we are going to be learning how to create our own form of a mural. A mural is a painting that is done directly on the surface of a wall. And there's a lot of great examples of murals in Grand Rapids that we can be inspired by. So I'm going to show you how you can use materials that you can find at home and different supplies that you can actually make yourself to do a mural painting. So I want to go over the supplies that we're going to need for this activity today. First, we need to find a surface to paint on. And since we're going for a larger scale mural painting, we want to find a surface that's big. So there's a couple different options that I'll show you, and really the possibilities are endless. But I'll show you a couple things that I pulled out that you could use. One would be a large piece of poster board, or if you want to cut off a large section of paper from a paper roll. Both of those things can be found in the craft section at the store. You could also use a couple of recycled materials. So you could cut off the side of a large cardboard box and use that. Or you could also take an old paper bag, a grocery paper bag, cut off the bottom section and then open it up and lay it flat. And trim up the edges a little bit, and that just makes a nice long big painting surface too. Next, we're going to need some supplies for painting. So I'm going to use some tempera paint for this project. This will work well because it's thicker and more opaque than like a watercolor paint, but it's also washable. And so since this will be a larger, potentially messier painting project, we'll want to use something that we can clean up easily. And then you'll also want some paper towels to clean up any messes that might happen. We also are going to need some tools to paint with. And I want to show you how you can create your own paint roller, which will be really fun for this project and for painting a really large area. So we're going to use, to create our own paint roller, you're going to need a pool noodle. And this is something you can find at the dollar store. You also will need a hanger. So I've got one here. And you'll need a knife to cut off a section of the pool noodle. This is something that a helper might need to help with this stuff. But we're just going to cut the pool noodle to size so that we can create our own paint roller. So what you'll do is you'll start by taking your hanger and you're going to break the bottom section. Just snap that right in half there. And once you've got your pool noodle cut to the length of the hanger, then you're just going to stick each of those ends right in the holes of the pool noodle. And you've got yourself a paint roller. And you can actually get several paint rollers out of one pool noodle. So just a really easy way to create your own painting tool with some supplies that you have at home or that you can find easily. And we also will need a container, so you can just use any plastic container that you will have, or a large, if you got a large paper plate. Just something to put some paint on to roll our roller into some paint. Finally, just a few other supplies that you might want to use for this activity. You might want to have a couple other painting tools on hand. So we're going to start with some larger painting with our paint rollers that we made, and then we have some other materials that we can use to embellish our paintings and add a little bit more detail after that's dry. So the other things you might want to grab are some other painting tools like a sponge brush or a large brush. Both of these can be found at your hardware store very inexpensively. You can also use the rest of your pool noodle and cut up some little circles that you could use as stamps. So I'll show you how to do some painting with all of those supplies. And then our last step would be to do some final details with some drawing materials once our paint is completely dry. So we will, you might want to have some drawing materials on hand to do that embellishment at the end. So you could use some pastels. I've got some chalk pastels here, which would look really nice on top of the paint. You also could use crayons or colored pencils or markers, any other drawing utensil that you have available. So now that you've got all your supplies gathered and your workspace set up, you are ready to begin. So I've got my mural painting surface laid out on the floor on top of some paper bags. You might also choose to tape up your work surface to the wall and work directly on the wall just like a real mural painting. And that would be a great activity to do outside now that the weather's getting warm. And but for today, I've just got mine laid out on the floor. And I have my pool noodle made here in my container where I squirted some paint. And I'm just going to go ahead and roll my roller in the paint here and start rolling on my paper. So I'm going to continue rolling paint on my surface until I've covered up most of my painting surface here. And if you've got a couple different rollers, you could try out a couple colors. I'm just going to go with one color today. And it's fun because as you start rolling, you'll notice different sort of designs and shapes take place. And once you've got that whole space covered, you're gonna let it dry and we'll be ready to add a few other things to it. So once your painting is dry from the paint rolling that we did, then you're ready to add a little bit more detail with some of the other painting materials that you have. So I'm gonna take my sponge brush, or you can use a paintbrush, and I've just got another recycled container that I use to squeeze some paint into. I'm still using tempera paint. And you can go ahead and add a little bit more color and fun stuff to your mural painting. And you might start to see a picture in the patterns of the designs that you created. Maybe you see something that looks like a landscape or an animal, or if you want to create a picture out of what you did, you can definitely do that, or you can keep it more abstract. It's totally up to you. So I'm just going to add a little bit more color. You can see I started to do that. I'm not really going for any particular picture. I'm just going to paint some color on here. Just some abstract brush strokes. Kind of fill in some of those white spaces maybe, or overlap the blue a little bit. So that's an example of how we can add some more detail with a brush. And then you could also take the scrap piece of your pool noodle, put some more different color paint maybe in another container, and then we're going to use this as a stamp. So I'm going to stamp some circle shapes on my painting and see what that looks like. So there's lots of possibilities, and again, if you have other ideas of other tools you could use, definitely give those a try too. So many possibilities with different things that we can turn into painting tools. And then finally, once all of your paint is completely dry, then you can grab your drawing materials. So I had chalk pastels, or colored pencils, or markers, or even crayons. And you can add some final detail on your painting with those different materials. So I'll just do a little bit of experimenting here with my chalk pastels. And this is fun because you can really get a lot more detail. So if you were going for a drawing or something more realistic picture, then you could do that. add a little bit more detail to create something more realistic with the drawing materials, or you can go abstract. But yeah, these allow you to just get a little bit more detailed. And you can kind of go with the shapes and the different lines that are created. Kind of work around those shapes that are already there. And just have fun with it. So many possibilities, and definitely something that could be fun to do as a collaborative work too. If you have a large enough surface that you're working on, multiple people could be adding to it at the same time. Be really fun. Okay, so I'm definitely gonna just keep playing with this and add some more detail and fun shapes and lines and different things with my drawing materials. Thank you so much for joining me today for this activity. I hope you have so much fun making your own mural painting.